Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In February 2015, the Canadian Grain Commission announced the Canadian wheat class modernization process. Later that year, the CGC announced the creation of the Canadian Northern Hard Red and Canadian Western Special Purpose wheat classes. To the Minister of Agriculture, what have you done to ensure Alberta ag producers are aware and ready for this classification change?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Forestry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the member for the very good technical question. Our office continues to working with producers, cereal and oilseed producers right across the province in discussions with any changes the federal government proposes. There's a number of changes, not just in seed grading, as well. So continuing that good work with the producers, they're well aware, they're well versed on and well trained, and some of the best producers in the world, as you know, Mr. Speaker, and we'll continue working with them as we go through these regulatory changes.
For supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, given that Alberta farmers are already experiencing a backlog from full elevators and a looming hopper car shortage, and given that the federal government has already said, and I quote, the CGC is not allowing any grace period for producers after the July 31st deadline, unquote. Minister, what plans, if any, are in place if farmers aren't able to get their grain shipped, regardless whether they have had their wheat varieties reclassified or not?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I do really appreciate the question. It allows me the opportunity to update the House and changes that have been made. So recently, the federal government has passed changes to the Canadian Transportation Act. Will go a long ways. One more tool in the toolbox for producers to be able to get their products to market. As well, we've had good news the past few weeks. Both the large carriers, CN and CP, have both announced 1,000 new hopper cars each that they're going to buy. So that's 2,000 brand new hopper cars that are going to be online very shortly. As well, the CN has announced a large number of new locomotives they're going to be hiring with infrastructure. Changes as well on side tracking and new terminals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Second supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, given that producers who have a delivery date after August 1st for a transitioning variety, should be already contacting their grain buyer to ensure the grain will be accepted as Canadian Western Red Spring or Prairie Spring Red, and given wheat varieties classified as Canadian Northern Red are expected to sell at a discount. Again, to the Minister, are there any programs available for these farmers as they transition to these new classes of wheat, given the possible negative financial ramifications?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the member for the question. Just yesterday, I had the opportunity to meet representatives from Grains Connect and Viterra on their new facilities that they're building across the prairie, including in Alberta. So there's many reasons to feel optimistic in farming in Alberta, Mr. Speaker. Last year was one of the best years on records and on cash receipts. I'm looking forward to working with producers, working with processors, marketers, and transport companies as we continue the good work we do here in agriculture, Mr. Speaker.